Hello and welcome back to another video, guys. Now today, that's right, I am finally reviewing The Mandalorian Season 2. So before we get started, if you have not seen Season 1 or Season 2 of The Mandalorian, I would not really recommend watching this video because I am going to go into spoilers. I don't see how you can't when reviewing this show, to be honest, because especially Season 2, because, wow, there's a lot of cool Star Wars stuff here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each episode individually. I'm not going to just talk about the whole show as a whole. We're going to go through each episode. So, of course, we've got 8 episodes here. We got Chapter 9 to Chapter 16. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, Chapter 9, The Marshal. This episode, guys, I'm almost tempted to say this was my favourite one. This episode summed up Star Wars for me. This was classic adventure. And it had such a good mix of like you have this group of villagers. You've got the Mandalorian who goes in there, and you've got these innocents. Then you've got the Tusken Raiders, and we know what Tusken Raiders are like from other Star Wars properties. They're not the nicest of guys. They're they're thieves and stuff. So they have to come together to, of course, defeat this the big monster. What's it called? Oh, God, I should know this. Something dragon. I can't even figure the name off the top of my head. The Star Wars expert here. Are we sure? But the Krayt dragon. And they come together they have to kill it. And it was incredible to watch. Because, number one, you could see how well the budget had gone up here. And you could tell that Jon Favreau directed this one. It had that classic sense of adventure. To it. Now, what I really liked was how they teased certain things, like obviously Boba Fett's armor was on the Marshal, and we all knew that was Boba Fett's armor, but the episode didn't go overboard in being like, hey, this is this. It's kind of like he just casually wore it for the whole episode, and then he gave it to Mando at the end. It's like, maybe Boba Fett is still dead there. Maybe someone's just got the armor out the Sarlacc pit, or maybe, we don't know. And then right at the very end, we get it. We get that little glimpse of Boba, Really, really cool. I love all the Easter eggs to KOTOR in this episode as well. Jon Favreau has mentioned a lot of times that he's a big fan of that era of Star Wars and the Old Republic. And it was nice to get a few things come back from that, like with the big pearl at the end. That was really good fun. And yeah, this episode was fantastic. I don't have a single complaint about it. I don't. If I was to give the episode a rating out of 10, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. The next episode up, Chapter 11, The Heiress. No, sorry, I've read that wrong. I've gone the wrong way. The Passenger, sorry. The Passenger, of course, sorry. I've got the episodes here on IMDb, and they go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, instead of 2 columns. Anyway, sorry. Get distracted. The Passenger, this episode to me was the most filler of this season. It's clear that, we had this opening episode where they wanted to set things up, and then episode 3 is where things start to unravel a bit, but they had to get something in between there. But what we got was still a really, really fun episode. This episode was directed by Peyton Reed, who, of course, is famous for doing the 2 Ant-Man films. I'm always a bit skeptical on him as a director. He's hit and miss. He kind of plays it on the safe side, and I think here he played it a bit more on the safe side again. But it was a really interesting episode. Still, I thought the visuals for this one were great. I loved going to this new location. It was interesting. Seeing this icy planet. I like the fact that they showed like the big spiders from Rebels, tied it in with that. That was really cool. The new species design of those frog lizard things I thought was really nice. Baby Yoda had some, or Grogu, had some incredible scenes in this one. It cracked me up. I know some people, for some reason, got a bit angry about it, him eating the eggs, but it's like, guys, come on. And then, of course, we got the 2 new Resistant pilots pop up at the end, which I found really interesting, because I don't know if this is going to tie into what has now been announced as Patty Jenkins' upcoming film, Rangers of the Republic. So yeah, this episode, was a little bit forgettable when you look back at all the episodes this season, but I still thought it was highly entertaining. I was entertained from start to finish, and I walked away going, you know what, I had a really good time with that still. I'd probably say it's the weakest episode of the season. I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was very entertaining still. Then we got Chapter 11, The Heiress, which was you know, the thing with Boba Fett was in the first episode we'd seen the armor, so I think we all had an inkling that Boba Fett was still alive. So when he popped up at the end, it was like, there we go. This one done a shock moment. And looking back at the season, it's not that shocking compared to some other things we got, but because this was the first time we had a real big shocker, it was huge when this happened. When we saw Bo-Katan finally pop up, of course, being played by the Katie Sackhoff, sorry, who of course famously voices Bo-Katan in the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. When she pops up, now I've got to say, Bryce Dallas Howard, she directed chapter 4 last season, and it was the weakest episode for me. It's still the weakest episode of the show overall for me. Her directing skills needed some improvement. Here, she's up to her game. I can say that I genuinely feel her directing skills have improved a lot here. The tension when they were on the boat and poor Grogu got chucked into the middle of the boat where that sea monster was that was a scary moment. The action sequences going through the Imperial ship was fantastic. I love the Imperial officer. Really, really cool. The very small scene with Moff Gideon was fantastic as well. And yeah, I thought this episode was really well paced. The action sequences were shot so well. The choreography was great. And the Mandalorian, the Bo-Katan and her 2 Mandalorians who were with her, they look fantastic. I was a bit skeptical as to how the Clone Wars armor would translate to live action, because obviously the Mandalorian and all the Mandalorians we saw in season 1, their armor's very different in terms of design and style to the Clone Wars and Rebels Mandalorians. They're much more traditional Mandalorians, whereas these ones that we're seeing here are specifically taken from the Clone Wars and Rebels adaptations, and they done a great job with them. They really did. I'll give chapter 11 an 8, and I don't want to go 8.5. I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was a very entertaining episode. Then we got chapter 12, The Siege. Now this episode here, a lot of people loved. And weirdly enough, I was kind of on the opposite end of it. I enjoyed this episode a lot still. There isn't an episode I don't like here. It was a very, very good season. I think when the action finally started to happen and Mandalorian just flew off, I was a bit bummed out. I wanted to see the Mandalorian. What can I say? This episode's directed by Carl Weathers, who of course is in this episode, reprising his character from season 1, who I absolutely love. I think he done a great job directing. Actually, I'll say that there was it always kept you up to date with what was happening, and there were you wasn't always like, because it was always on my mind, like, okay, they've got to get out. Where's Mando? Where is he? Blah, 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 blah. Like, it was very clear as to what was happening still. And I think he's a really, really underrated director, I think. He can do some great stuff. And he's a fantastic actor. Who really is. We also had the return of the character Cara Dune, who we see a bit more of later on in the season. And then, of course, we got some strong hints here as to what's to come later on in the season. Of course, we get the return of Dr. Pershing. We sort of get a return of him, so we get some strong hints here as to like the cloning that's going on. And of course we get another Moff Gideon scene, which was, whenever Moff Gideon's on screen, I think it's because of Giancarlo Esposito. I think he's such a good actor. Whenever he's on screen, I'm totally in awe. But yeah, no, this episode was really good. I like the slow build up to the action sequences, and then when we got to the action sequences, they were really good. I like seeing the stormtroopers. They're completely useless, but I love seeing them. But yeah, I just wanted to see more Mando, I think. I wanted him to be a bit more involved in the action. But hey, that's not the way the story went. The episode was still really good. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. The next episode up, chapter 13, The Jedi. Now, something I forgot to mention when we talked about chapter 11 is that we did get the name drop of Ahsoka Tano, which someone like me who watched the Clone Wars religiously as it was airing, and then I did the same with Rebels, this is a big deal. Like, Ahsoka Tano is top 5 Star Wars character for me, and to finally get her live action is something I think a lot of people have wanted for a long time, and I think we all knew that it was coming because this episode was called The Jedi. It was directed by Dave Filoni. 2 weeks before it was airing, we got the name drop. I think it was obvious enough it was going to happen. And the way it happened, I thought was great. We don't need a build-up to this character, I don't think, because some people are like, oh, her entrance was a bit quick. But I don't think we needed it. She was in 6 of the 7 seasons of Clone Wars. She popped up a few times in Rebels. We've seen this character load. She doesn't need to have this Vader presence where she needs to be mysteriously built up and then bam, she's on screen with this huge entrance. I love the way they just sort of whacked her on screen. I thought it was great. She looked fantastic. I want to say Rosie Dawson done a fantastic job in this episode because I was a tad worried that I knew she'd look good, but I wasn't sure on the voice because I'm so used to Ashley Eckstein, something like that. I'm so used to her voice as Ahsoka. That's what was worrying me. And no, she done a great job. The revelations in this episode were also incredible, like learning the backstory of Baby Yoda, that he's called Grogu, that he was at the Jedi Temple in Coruscant, and someone got him out during the Jedi Purge. I still have many theories as to who that could be. The constant revelations that were coming throughout this episode was fantastic. Watching Ahsoka interact with Grogu was fantastic. I loved her fight scene with the villain in this episode. I thought it was great. A lot of the shots between Mando and Lang, he's called, the guy who, you know, the villain's right-hand man. Proper Western vibes, which is what the show goes for, and I really appreciate that. I thought it looked really good. And yeah, I've got to touch on the Thrawn name drop. Thrawn is also top 5 Star Wars character for me. I've read all 4 of his novels. He's just an incredible character, and I'm so excited that we're going to be getting him. I'm guessing he'll be the big villain of the Star Wars TV world, not Moff Gideon. And I'm guessing we'll get Thrawn in the Ahsoka show. But this episode, I've got no complaints. I genuinely think this could be my favourite. It's between episode 1, this one, and maybe the last episode. They're like my 3 that I'm rattling around in my brain. I think this episode was incredible. I have 0 complaints about it. I thought it's perfect. True Star Wars fans are going to love this episode. You can find loads of little hidden Easter eggs in here, like the Thrawn emblem on the droids in the village. You can see Ahsoka's owl. There's loads of cool little Star Wars references like that in this episode. I'm going to give this episode a 10 out of 10. Dave Filoni, well done. Well done, thank you. Right, episode 6, The Tragedy. I was not expecting this episode to be great. I thought there's no way they're going to follow the Ahsoka episode up with anything too special. This is going to be a filler, and then we're going to go into a double part with episodes 7 and 8. And wow, I was just wrong. It almost feels it's a triple parter, really, this finale, isn't it? Because, of course, Ahsoka sends Mandalorian off to go to this, what's the planet's name? I can't think of the planet's name. I do know it because I remember it from Legends, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm having a brain fart. I'm sorry, guys. It's still very early here. But he goes to the planet where he puts Grogu on the stone, and a Jedi is going to call out to him. And, of course, he does that. And I love the fact that he does his little hands like this, and you've got the blue circle. And the blue circle looked just like what Carl done on Carl Castus on Fallen Order. I thought that was really clever how they sort of tied it in with the game a bit there. And then bam, the episode just picks up from there. You know, Slave 1 turns up, Boba Fett comes out, and Fennec has returned from Season 1. I really liked that they brought her character back. So I'm a big fan of the actress, Ming-Ya Wen. She's fantastic. I'm really happy, because I really liked her in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'm really happy that now she's in the Star Wars universe. Really looking forward to seeing what they do with her character. We get to see the Dark Troopers in this episode, which was really cool. And just the action in this was fantastic. I loved it when Mando and Fennec were sort of cornered, and then Boba finally came out with his armor on. It was like, great. This is great stuff. Robert Rodriguez done an incredible job on this episode, I really think. Bit short, but then again, I don't know what I'd add to it. I thought this episode was near perfect. I had a fantastic time with it. I'll give this episode 9.5. Genuinely loved it. Next up, chapter 15. This one here, The Believer. They bring back a character from Season 1 called Mayfield, who is played by the very funny Bill Burr. And I was very confused when, at the end of the last episode, they said they were going to bring him back. I was like, really? They're going to bring him back? Wow, they done so much with this character. I loved it. I loved it. The scene where they're in the canteen, and of course they're sitting across from an Imperial officer, And you can see just the whole canteen bit in general, because I've missed the bit where, of course, the Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal, has to take his helmet off, and he's walking around without his helmet on for a bit. It's like, wow, this is really, really good. Like, Pedro Pascal is incredible. He really is. And anytime he gets to take his helmet off in his show, he lets everyone know. And him and Bill Burr bouncing off each other so well in every scene they share together. I loved the bit where Bill Burr, you know, is confronting sort of this officer, and this officer's, you know, saying everything that Bill Burr doesn't want to hear. And of course, then Bill Burr eventually, or Mayfield, I keep saying the actor, but Mayfield eventually shoots him. And I have to admit, I cracked up with that stormtrooper walked over with the tray with all the food on. Yeah, this episode was fantastic. And you know, first episode without Grogu in properly since the first ever episode. I know he pops up right at the end, but he, you know, he barely does anything. The action sequences on this were fantastic when the pirates were trying to get on board their ship. Everything about it was truly great. I'm also going to give this episode a 9.5. I thought it was fantastic. And in the last episode we have to talk about, Chapter 16, The Rescue. This episode, you know, it started off, you know, Peyton Reed again doing this one. The Ant-Man director, who, again, going into it, I was a little bit sceptical when I saw that. I was like, oh, he's not the one I would have picked to do the finale. But after watching this, you know what, he done an incredible job. This is the best thing he's done in his career so far. He proved in this episode that he is a good director. And the way it started was so good, where they, of course, capture Dr. Pershing, and then they go to, I'm not sure what planet it was, actually, but they go to a planet, and you see the Mandalorian ship parked outside, and I was like, here we go, here comes Bo-Katan, she's got to be coming back. She comes back with Koska, I think her character's name is, the other Mandalorian woman. The guy isn't there. And yeah, they go off with Cara Dune, Boba, and Fennec to save Baby Yoda. And what we get is an epic action episode where things are going so well, and then it looks like things take a real turn. When Moff Gideon steals almost every scene in this episode, I think. He's absolutely fantastic. You know, Giancarlo Esposito is incredible. Seeing him fight Mando with the Darksaber was... And the Dark Troopers finally get to get a bit of action in here. Mando has a really good fight with one of them. And then, yeah, things turn again, and the Dark Troopers come back. They're stranded on the bridge, and it looks like our heroes are all well and truly screwed. But then something incredible happens, as you all know by now. The X-Wing turns up, and as soon as one X-Wing turned up, I sort of knew. I was like, this is it, we're going to see Luke. And the way they filmed it, I thought was incredible. The music was fantastic. Seeing Grogu, like, just look at him on the screen was amazing. And then, of course, every shot with Luke in was fantastic, I thought. When he took his head down, I've seen people complaining about the CGI, and yeah, you know, granted, it's not perfect, but it's, you know, for me, it's good enough. It's not like, I'm sitting there, it's not like The Rock in the Scorpion King, where it's like, ooh, that's just really bad. It's not, so it doesn't really bother me too much. And every shot in those last 5 minutes was fantastic. Like, I had a tear in my eye when Grogu wanted to see the Mandalorian's face, so he took his mask off. Grogu was like touching his little whiskers. He put him on the floor and he gave his foot a hug. And then my heart melted when you heard the little beeps and R2 rolled out. Yeah. I'm going to give this episode a 9.5 out of 10 as well. I thought this episode was near perfection. Near perfection. It was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, Mandalorian Season 2 overall for me, I think I'll give it overall a 9. The first 4 episodes, you know, they could have felt a bit more connected, I think, is the only thing I would complain about. I think that is genuinely the only thing I complain about. Other than that, yeah, the season was pretty damn awesome. As a Star Wars fan, I felt very rewarded. It's not hard to please me with Star Wars. I won't be hugely critical on Star Wars, to be honest, as long as it doesn't mess up the lore or give me an awful story, which this season of The Mandalorian done neither of. So, it's my favourite universe. They've expanded upon it incredibly. I'm so happy with the results of this season. The Mandalorian Season 2 gets, 9 out of 10 from me. I think it's pretty damn fantastic, and I think it is actually better than Season 1 somehow. And hey, let's hope Season 2 is even better. And of course, we got the tease at the end there of the Book of Boba Fett, which I'm really excited to see. And of course, we got loads of other things coming up now, one of which is the Ahsoka show, which is probably the one I'm most excited about. No, probably Obi-Wan. But I'm really excited for the Ahsoka show, nevertheless. But anyway, that is it for this review, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a message, and I'll see you all next time for another video. Bye-bye.